Okay, so now we have our stripy body all ready. Now we need to do the fleece pattern pieces for the fins and for the tail. And so I've cut out the pattern pieces here. I'm using up some scraps of fabric here. I've decided to go with yellow for a contrast. It's up to you what colour you go with. So I'm using scraps. I'm not worrying too much about which way the nap is going. So the stretch, I'm making sure that the front and the back pieces, the stretch is going in the same direction. But I'm not too worried about where I'm laying the pattern pieces. It doesn't matter too much for these little bits. So I'm just using up the fabric as best I can. So we need to cut 2 fins of the small fins, 1 for each side, and 1 of the top fin, so 2 pieces. I've put right sides together, and I'm going to cut along the dotted line. I've cut my pattern pieces to that line, so that that's because I'm going to sew on the machine. So if you're doing it by hand, you can cut to the solid line. Again, I'm going to pin these bits together to stop them moving while I'm stitching. Right sides together. So if you're using fleece, it's the lovely fluffy side to the inside. And you're going to go around the edges, leave the bottom open, leave the bottom open. Same with the top fin. You're going to go around the top edge and leave the whole of the bottom open. Now, one option with the top fin would have been to have made it up ready before we sewed the top of the fish, and actually to have encased it in the top seam. And I did that with the denim fish. That was one of the demonstration fish. That works quite well, but I just decided to do it the other way so you could see both examples. Okay, so I'm going to stitch those on the machine now and bring them back to show you. So you can see here that I have stitched around the edges, like I said, but left the bottom open, and done the same on the fins. I'm going to trim the cottons, and I'm also going to do a small slit, being very careful not to cut into where I've just stitched, to make it easier to turn inside out at those points there. Oh, excuse me. Push it through. And then grab your piece of foam and you're going to put that inside. So the easiest way to do that is to fold it in half, squish it, and gently push it into place. I'm going to push the foam up as far as I can. So that the bumps of the foam go into the bumps of the fleece. That's it. Grab my fish. And then you need to decide whereabouts on the fish you want the fins to go, because you might want to place it there, or you might want to place it further down, or even at the bottom. So have a little look at the different fish that we've made up as examples, because they've got fins in different places. I think he's going to have his fin there. So I'm going to do the same with the top fin. two other fish here, if you can see this. So this one's just got 3 lines stitched on it, and that's right through the foam and both sides of the fleece, creating a bit of a shape. Can you see that? Maybe better there. And then on the denim one, we did more of a design. Can you see that? Yeah. So it's up to you. You could do this by hand or on the machine. You need a bit of a decent machine, and you can do it using a straight stitch and a normal presser foot on the standard straight stitch and just keep turning it, or you can use an embroidery foot and have it freestyle so the feed dogs are down. If you don't understand what I'm talking about, then best stick to what you know and doing it with a straight stitch. Okay, so it's up to you. I think with this simple fish, I'm going to do maybe a few zigzags along it on the machine. There we are. So I'm going to have a little go at doing this on the sewing machine. Now I'm going to try and video this so you can see what I'm doing, because I tend not to video myself sewing on the machine, because if you're going to use the machine you probably know what you're doing. But this little bit of freestyle, where I haven't given you any lines on the pattern or anything, you might want to have a little bit of a closer look at what I'm doing. And I'm going to do it on a normal presser straight stitch. I guess I'm pretty confident at this, and you may not feel quite so confident. So I'm just going to go with the simple. I've got it on a straight stitch, and I've got it so that the needle, when it stops, stays down into the foam. And I'm pushing quite hard. Don't want the fleece to pucker. And then I'm going to lift the foot and turn it round, but instead of going back down the same line, I'm going to come a little bit further along. Now I've got the same colour cotton, top and bottom, so that it's going to look the same, hopefully, on both sides. And I'm just going to keep going. When it gets to the foam, you need to sort of give it a bit of a shove. Have the fins stitched, and I'm going to hand stitch them onto the side of the fish using a strong upholstery thread, so I know it's really, really secure. And I'm going to do the same with the top fin on the top, and I'm really happy with those. And then I'm going to show you how to do the eye, and I'm going to do an eye padded eye surround on this particular fish to show you how to do that as well. So I'm going to go ahead and sew those in place. Okay, I'm quite happy about the sticking out nicely. If you want it to go flatter against the fish's body, you could put a little stitch to hold it in place and hold it back, but I quite like the way that it flaps around. And you could even put a bit of a rod on the fin if you wanted to wave with your fish. What do you think? That worked quite well. So I'm going to go ahead and sew the other one on and then work on the top fin. Okay, so I've stitched the tail and I'm just pushing it in. So I've turned it the right way out. I've got my foam and I'm going to push the foam right into the end of the tail. And it's quite fiddly, so just keep working it and pushing it until it's right down the end. Okay, and then decide, because it's not exactly the same both sides, one's slightly larger than the other end, so I quite like the large end at the top. I think that looks quite nice. I'm quite pleased with that. So what we're going to do is fold back the fleece on the body and fold back the fleece on the tail, and we're just going to put some contact adhesive on there to stick the two together. So if you remember, you need to apply contact adhesive to both sides where you want to stick, and you need to let it cure for 6-7 minutes before you try to stick them together. So do this carefully because you don't want to get glue on your fleece, and then leave it to cure 6 minutes. So that should have cured by now. So we're just going to pop the two ends together and that should stick quite nicely. And then I'm going to just tuck the fleece of the body under to create a little bit of a hem all the way around. And then I'm going to stitch the tail to the body in the same way as I've stitched the fins. Okay, so I'm hiding the knot inside. Don't want to see that on the outside. And then I'm coming just inside the raw edge on the yellow, and I'm pulling tight, and I'm going to go round, all the way round. Now you'll notice that I've not done the machine stitching on the tail as I did on the fins on the top. That's because I'm going to do some hand stitching on there. For those of you that are doing hand stitching, I thought I'll do some hand stitching on the tail and show you how to do it. So you obviously want to knot the end of your cotton, but you don't want to see that knot. So I'm going to try and hide it inside. So I'm going to do a little running stitch along the tail, and you want to check each side that you're staying in line both sides. So you're going to be constantly turning and double checking that your needle's coming through at the right point. Okay. And in effect, you are drawing a line with your needle. And I'm not going to go right the way along. I'm just going to do 3 lines on the tail. So you can see you get a very similar effect with hand stitching than you do with machine stitching, so you could do it either way. Now we're going to look at the eyes next. We're nearly there. So for this puppet we're using resin eyes. So this is 5 centimeters resin eyes. If you would like to make your own resin eyes, then Adam Cruitinge does a very good video on how to make them. So we're not going to duplicate that here. But I've used some Eva foam to create a pupil, and there's a pattern. There's a size for this in your pattern pieces. So you can cut it. And I decided I would actually make a donut, a bit of a donut for a surround for the eye. Because of the weight of these resin eyes, just sticking them on straight like that, I'm always slightly worried that they're going to come adrift at some point, particularly if you're working with children or you've got quick changes in the middle of a performance and you need to sort of drop puppets on the floor quite quickly. They need to be robust, and just gluing that with hot glue or contact adhesive, I mean, always rough up the back a bit with sandpaper, which I do, but I always feel like it needs a little bit of added support, so adding a fleece eyelid and then stitching that in place as well just helps to keep it a little bit more robust. But instead of an eyelid, in this case, I've decided to go with a donut, an eye surround it's called in your pattern, which I really quite like. And there we go. I think he looks rather lovely. So I'm going to show you how to make that next. So find your eye surround pattern and cut it out. So your pattern piece looks like that. There we go. So I'm going to cut this out. Okay, and I'm going to neaten the foam and cut some of the sharp edges off as well to round it off a little bit on the front and the back. A pair of embroidery scissors would work better for this. And then we've got a strip of fleece, the colour that you've chosen to do the eye surround in. And what we're going to do is we're going to hand stitch it round like this, and all the way around until the ends join. So I'll just carry on and do that. want to do is put the seam to the back so that when you stick it to your fish it won't be seen. And there we are, 2 fish eyes. I'm also going to line up the seam. You should see it a little bit with the cutout, so it's to the back of the eye. So we're going to put some contact adhesive on both sides. We're going to do the eyes first. Actually, before I did that, I should have decided exactly where I want the eye to go, and I think it's about there. So I'm going to put a little bit of contact adhesive. You need to be very careful with this. Don't go as far as the size of the eye itself. Keep it a little bit smaller, because what you don't want to do is have glue visible or interfering with when you're stitching the surround in place. Now I'm going to very carefully match. I would advise that you measure this, okay, quite carefully. Make sure you get it exactly the same. Where's my measuring tape? Okay, it's the length of my needle up from the mouth and into the eye, and up from the mouth. Okay, and leave that to cure. And add it to the back of the other eye. Now I have sanded the back of these eyes to give it a bit of extra bond. And then 6 or 7 minutes to let it cure. Okay, so that's my time up, and I'm pointing the cutout V of the eye away from the mouth and pushing that so we get really good contact. Cutout V away from the mouth, just lining them up. And you can have your hand inside the puppet and be pushing from the inside to make sure you're getting a really good bond. Better? Oh, I think he looks fab. Really lovely. And now the surrounds of the eye. Remember I said pointing the seams. So this is what he's going to look like he's going swimming with goggles on. Oh, fabulous. Oh, I like it. I like it a lot. Lovely. Okay, well, we're going to hot glue those in place. And what we're going to do, let me do it this way around so you can see a bit more clearly. So we're going to put the seam away towards the back of the eye, and I'm going to hot glue around the eye here and also onto the fleece, so that when we pop it into place it sticks to both and it secures the resin to the fleece and the fleece to the fleece, so you're getting really good security there. And then if you really feel you want to, you can stitch as well to give that little bit of added security on top. So, glasses on. You can't work too slowly with the hot glue because obviously it starts to dry and go cool, it goes hard. So let's get that on there. And again, push it down from against your hand on the inside. If you've got any stray bits that are showing, peel them off as you go. But actually I'm quite pleased with that. And you see this little, makes it here a bit better. You can see little white marks where some glue is visible on the Eva foam. So you can pick those off. Or the other thing you can do with a black Sharpie is to take a permanent black marker and go over the little bits of glue with it, and they will disappear. Can you see? I'm hoping you can. Do it very carefully because you don't want to get black marker on your white resin. Okay, that's one done. So let's turn them over and do the same on the other side. So we're sticking the fleece to the resin and the fleece to the fleece at the same time. And that should give a really good, super secure bond. Fab. Well, I think he looks lovely. So, two more things to decide. Do you want lips on your fish? I'm going to make some just in case you do. You might not want to do the surrounds. You might want to choose a different way of doing eyes. And if you go to our Facebook page, there's some videos from a live event where I show you how to make a variety of eyes. We had a bit of technical problems in the middle, so there's two videos actually, but if you can bear me getting in a panic while the technical bits went wrong, the rest of it's okay. And I show you various ways of doing eyes, and at some point we'll pull that together into a proper video. But so you need to decide, do you want to do lips or not? I think maybe not, but I'm going to make some to show you how, and then we'll decide whether he's going to get any or not. And then the other job we need to do is to finish off these raw edges at the bottom. So we're going to put a little bit of a cuff, and we're going to tuck it inside and stick it to neaten it all up. Okay? Are you going to put lips on your fish? So here we go. There's a couple of examples here. It's got Are you going to put lips on your fish? There's a couple of examples here. So this is one of the first fish that we made. He's got rather luscious orange lips there, made with the batik cotton. I love this. You can buy, it's pure cotton, 100% cotton that's been batiqued, and you can buy it in most fabric stores and patchwork departments. So that's one. The size I'm going to make is similar to this, a little bit narrower. You've got two options in your pattern. This one's just different colour. This is one that we made recently, and he's got fabulous lips as well, done in a different colour, but it's the same fabric. I just love it. You could choose any fabric you like. You can go with fleece if you like. It doesn't have to be stretchy for this. We're going to make them in separate pieces and stuff them with wadding or small pieces of foam. You can make them in fleece. You could cut the pattern slightly smaller in foam and use foam on the inside if that's what you've got. Use what you've got. Okay. Old stockings, anything to stuff them with. So I'm going to show you how to make the lips. I'm going to make the slightly smaller ones that are in the pattern. So I've cut my pattern pieces out and I've decided on orange batik cotton, and I'm going to pin up just down the lips so they just fit right. I've got various lovely luscious orange batik cotton, but I don't need it all. So I'm going to pin these and cut them out. And because I'm going to stitch these on the machine, I've cut to the dotted line. I would recommend doing this on the machine if you're going to do it the technique that I'm going to show you. You can do it by hand, but it's quite difficult with cotton because it frays at the edge. If you're going to do it by hand, I would recommend a non-fraying fabric like the fleece. So, and what I would recommend, because you don't want a seam, if you're doing it by hand it doesn't matter. So if you're doing it by hand, cut it to the solid line and leave yourself an opening for stuffing, and then close up when you finish stuffing. If you're doing it on the machine, I recommend stitching to the solid line all the way round and cutting an opening and stuffing from the back, but I'm going to show you how to do that now. Okay, so you want right sides together. If you're using this fabric, it's difficult to tell which is the right side and which is the wrong side because it's such good quality fabric. So I'm going to stitch all the way around, and then I'm going to cut a slit in the back and turn it, and I'll show you how to do that. Okay, so I've stitched the upper and the lower lip. Actually, it's up to you which way around you want to fit them. So what I'm going to do now is cut a small slit in the back and turn them the right way out. So being very careful to only cut through one of the pieces of fabric. I'm going to cut a small slit, long enough so that it's not too difficult to turn the fabric the right way out. I might use a pen to help me with this. And if that's not sharp enough, then being careful not to poke right through the fabric. I want to get as much of a point on the end as I can. Okay. And the other end. Again, again, being very careful not to poke the scissors through the delicate fabric if you're using a delicate one like me. So then you have that with the hole in the back, and you're going to use whatever stuffing material you want to use. I'm just using toy filler because that's what I've got, but this actually is recycled toy filler from old cushions and pillows. So we do like to try and be a little bit eco if we can. I think that's probably enough. And then I'm going to take some strong thread. I use upholstery thread everywhere I possibly can, unless I haven't got a really good colour match. To just do an overstitch along. So tucking the knot to the inside. They might look quite good. I'm going to do the other one. What do you think? Oh, actually, yes. Oh, definitely lips. Of course, lips. So what I'm going to do then is... oh, bless him. You want to leave a bit of a gap in between the mouth, because what you don't want to do is close down the movement of the mouth at all. So I'm going to hot glue a little bit just to hold the lips in place, but I'm going to leave a gap here and a corresponding gap on the other side here. I've learnt this from the previous fish, and then I may stitch it as well using a curved needle like one of these, so that I can get inside the mouth to stitch it in place. I think he looks rather luscious, don't you? Love him. We're nearly there. So I just need to sew the top lip. I'm going to do that in the same way as the bottom lip, and then we have this rough edge here on the inside of the fish which we want to hide. So you'll find your collar piece in your pattern, and I've cut 2 pieces of fleece that are going to fit around and tuck inside. So let me show you how to do that. So I'm going to get the sewing machine out, and I'm going to stitch along these 2 sides here to join them into the round, and I'll do that, and then I'll be back to show you what next. I do this by hand, of course, just doing an overstitch or a running stitch just inside the edge here and here. So you can see that I've got a resulting donut of fleece which I have pinned in place over the fish. Now you're going to have to stretch this to make it fit, and that's deliberate. It's not too small if you stretch the fleece as you pin it. And the reason for that is so that because it's going on the inside when you flip it, not the outside over the foam. You'll see you need a much snugger fit when you flip it onto the inside. So I'm going to pin it all the way around like that, and then you're going to get yourself a needle and thread, and you're going to do an overstitch all the way around. Okay, do it as neat as you can and pull it nice and tight. You need to go reasonably close to the edge so that the stitches don't show too much, but far enough in so it's not going to pull out, if you see what I mean. Okay, so there you are. So what happens now is that tucks inside the fish's body. Now you can see how much neater that's going to look and finish off your puppet beautifully. You can hot glue that, just pop in a little bit of hot glue on the inside edge and then holding it in place as you go round, or you can stitch, but of course you don't want stitches to show on the outside of your puppet, so do that carefully if you decide to stitch. Now you may decide that actually you want a sleeve. Let me show you. So in the past we have put sleeves on the bottom of our puppets like this, so that the puppeteer's arm doesn't show. Now of course you can do that, and it's just basically a long tube. You don't really need a pattern piece because it's basically just a big triangle that you sew to the bottom of your fish, and then you don't need a collar if you're going to put a thing on. But we've stopped doing this because we now it's much easier to then use different fish in different ways, or the same fish in different ways. So for example, we might want to use the fish with a green screen, and if we've sewn on a collar, we need to get rid of that, and then if you're pushing that inside of the body, it then gets in the way of you getting your fingers in place for the mouth movement. So we decided it's much easier if the puppeteer's arm needs to be hidden, that they wear a long sleeve top that's either black, or a pair of long black gloves with the fingers cut loose in order for your fingers to be free to manipulate the puppet freely. So there we go. So your finished puppet. We really hope that you have enjoyed making a puppet with us, and that you'll have a look at our other patterns, and of course subscribe. This isn't, the video here is not on our main YouTube channel, so you may want to go and have a look at our other YouTube channel, which is Paella Puppets, Paella Puppets and Patterns Plus. We also have a Facebook group if that's not the way that you came to us. But enjoy your fish, and we would love to see photos of your finished fish, so please do send them to us either by email or post them in the comments on the Facebook page. We'd love to see them. Enjoy, have fun. Okay. keep puppeting.